Welcome to biology and our introduction to DNA. My name is Mr Varoxis, and today we'll be working together to delve into DNA and to discover what that is and how important it is to life on Earth. So, as always, we have our learning objectives. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to provide an explanation for what DNA is, describe the structure of DNA, and understand the importance of DNA itself. So, big question, what is DNA? So, DNA stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid, and it's often called the blueprint for life. Now, the reason for this is it contains the instructions for making proteins within the cells. And we need so many proteins to be able to function on a daily basis for growth, repair, regeneration. Proteins really are a pivotal part of life on Earth as we know it. And the instructions are wrapped up in this DNA molecule. And that's a representation of it here. So, why do we study DNA? It is of central importance to life on Earth, as I said before. Medical benefits can lead to cures for diseases. So, through modern technology, we are finding ways that we can alter this molecule now to cure diseases and to change the path of disease, which is fantastic. But again, altering this molecule will lead to discussions about ethics and whether we should be playing around with the structure and the genetic codes. But again, that's something that we will delve into a lot more a little bit later. Food, I don't know if you like food as much as I do, but altering the structure genetically of food to get better crop yields, to be more resistant to pests, to grow quicker. This is something that the agricultural industry is very interested in, to make genetically modified crops. And again, is this something that is a health benefit to us or a concern, something that we don't have all the information on just yet, but we do have the technology and the power to do so at this point in time. Okay, so let's have a look at the structure of the DNA molecule. So it's what's described as a very long polymer. It's got a basic shape. It's like a twisted ladder or a zipper. And it's called a double helix, as we've seen here. So what you've seen so far and heard are a lot of terms that you may not have encountered before with biology. I always encounter everyone to keep a glossary of these terms. It's fantastic to have the ability to be able to answer a question using these biological terms and the language of cellular biology. It really does show that you've got a good grasp of the understanding of the question and the content as well. Okay, so looking a little bit closer, the double helix molecule called DNA. So it's got two strands twisted together. And this model was actually, let's say discovered, but founded by James Watson and Francis Crick. So it's called the Watson and Crick model for DNA to show the structure of it. It's important to note, though, that there are a few other contributors in the science world that weren't well recognized for giving supporting information and really laying the foundation for Watson and Crick to reach the point to say that this here is what DNA looks like. One of those being Rosalind Franklin, which I'm sure you will hear a little bit more about along the way as well. But she provided some fantastic background information to reach the conclusion that this is what we have for DNA. So, the handrails of the DNA molecule as we see here, it's a backbone of sugar and phosphate molecules. And in the center, we see where the genetic information is. And you'll see all of those letters there. We've got A, T, C, and G, and they're what's called nucleotide bases. They're chemical bases, and the specific order of these will give codings for specific proteins to be made within the cell. So there's a fair few ways that you can join these up. They do join in specific ways, which we'll look at in subsequent videos as well. But A, T, C, and G, or CTAG as I've got down here as well. So that stands for cytosine, thymine, adenine, and guanine. And those names are ones to remember. handy to make maybe a mnemonic to be able to remember that. So maybe cars travel along ground, whatever it might be, to work for you, but something to be able to remember those because they are very important and they hold the information within the DNA molecule itself. Okay, this one right here in terms of relationships is a key one to understand for cellular biology, and it's between genes, chromosomes, and DNA. Okay, so this is the picture of a cell, and we know that our DNA lives within the nucleus of the cell. Okay, so we've got our chromosomes. They are made up of a chemical called DNA, which we've just looked at. Okay, and our genes are on our chromosomes. So these are our chromosomes right here. They are made up of DNA, and a segment of that is a gene. Okay, so part of a chromosome is a gene, and that contains DNA, which gives the information to code for a protein. We'll look at those separately in a little bit more detail. Okay, chromosomes. Humans contain 46 chromosomes, as you see down here. 23 pairs, your mother and your father are responsible for those, and that is what they look like. Okay, so a chromosome, and this is a really good definition for you to put down for chromosomes right here. It constitutes an entire DNA molecule, and it's actually got some protein molecules attached to it as well. So those protein molecules are called histones. Now, the DNA is actually supercoiled. So supercoiled just means wrapped really, really tightly into what's called a nucleosome. And as I said before, we've got 46 of these chromosomes, 23 pairs of them. So remember that our chromosome is the entire DNA molecule, okay? And a gene is only a portion of the DNA molecule. So chromosome is the entire DNA molecule, and it's got some proteins on there as well, okay? Genes, distinct regions on the chromosome, okay? So it's only a region on the chromosome. And each gene has a code for a specific protein. When we look down into the production of proteins within the body, it's amazing how closely managed it has to be just to get the exact protein, the exact place at the right time. We've got a fantastic system to edit these things out in terms of errors that could potentially occur, okay? So remember, the main thing is the gene is a region on the chromosome, okay? I've put down a little bit of a pathway here, and this is really the pathway for making a protein and the biggest overview you're probably going to get, the most general overview. So DNA will go down to something called RNA. We haven't encountered RNA yet. RNA is ribonucleic acid. So let me just write that down for you. So ribonucleic acid. For now, think of that as a single strand of DNA. Now we know DNA is the double helix molecule. RNA is a single stranded one of that, and we will look at that a little bit closer as well. It's very important when cells are dividing and making proteins, but DNA and RNA are going to make the end result which we need, and this is our protein, okay? And as I said, the differences in proteins is going to give us our differences between individuals and species, and that's the individual variants. And the way that our A, T, C, and G, if you remember what we were talking for before, the way those combine gives us a range of proteins for different purposes. And there'll be a big chart that we'll look at in a few videos time as well, just to see the differences of those. But that's where our variation comes into it. So, questions and activities. If you can answer this, you're well on the way, okay? What is DNA? Okay, deoxyribose nucleic acid. What is it exactly? We know it's something to do with the importance essentially for life, explaining the structure of DNA. Don't forget that double helix molecule. Why is it important? Again, it's at the core of cellular biology. And I want you to draw a basic diagram of the structure of DNA. So don't forget that backbone, the rungs of a ladder inside. And a good thing to do would be to take a picture of that, send it to your teacher, and they can see to make sure that you've got that DNA molecule and the components of it where they need to be. Okay, so if we can get this structure down pat, then we're going to find out what happens once it divides. Okay, we've got to break that molecule apart a little bit, and there's a process we'll go through. Okay, so next video lessons we're looking at is nucleotides, the building blocks of DNA. We're going to move on to DNA replication, and you should have covered mitosis and meiosis at some point, but if you haven't, we're going to be looking at those processes again, two different types of cell division, okay, where DNA will be replicated.